finish example 2, submit it to the assignment with the picture. I'll have one more that you have to do, so don't submit it all together. Congruent angles, okay? So this is saying if the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle B, then the angles are congruent. This is written as, anybody remember how we write congruent? A weird equal sign with the squiggly line over top. Looks like that. So when you read when you see that squiggly, it's also read as M or A is equal to or congruent to B. Okay. Flip it over to the back. All right. Kind of talked about a bisector last week, a little bit, okay? So, we also talked about what this was already. What is this called? Not a line, but comes from the sun. Ray. So a ray that divides an angle into two congruent, what's another word for congruent? If something's the same, we call them in math, they are equal. Okay. So a ray, an angle bisector is a ray that divides an angle into two congruent or equal angles. So if we look at the diagram over here, what would be the name of the ray that bisects that angle?
D.
D. What's it go to? D.
B.
D. So B. D. Is an angle bisector. Therefore, A, B, D would be congruent to D, B, C. If that makes sense. You want me to show you the two parts? So this is a bisector, it cuts it in the middle. So anytime you see bisector, it tells you that it splits the angle in half. So what that's telling you is this angle right here
I mean, it makes sense.
is the same as this angle right here, even though I drew it terribly.
It makes sense. I was just like thinking like how do you get the, at first I was just thinking how do you get A to B, but you get that C on there, you did it by itself.
Right.
To just pull
Yep.
them apart.
Correct. You just basically split the angle in half. Okay. Okay, so perpendicular lines, now you'll see that there's a difference between bisector and line. Perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect
Whatever.
so they intersect at a right angle. Okay, if you, the symbol for perpendicular, it looks like an upside down T. So if you saw in an equation something like line MB perpendicular to AC, that would mean that it would look like this. AC, MB. So anytime you see that upside down T, it means they're perpendicular. So if you look at the diagram over here, what's the name of one of our lines? Anybody? What's the name of one of our lines?
M.
M. So M is perpendicular to what's the other name?
L.
L. So that is how you would write perpendicular lines. Now, perpendicular bisector is a little bit different. A line segment or a ray perpendicular Yep. To a segment at its midpoint. Okay, so the difference is perpendicular lines go all the way through. Right? So if you notice here, perpendicular lines go all the way through and they keep going. A perpendicular bisector does not have to keep going. It could look like this, like that, where it's a segment with a line. It could be a line that goes this way and something that comes down off of it like that. Okay? The difference is a bisector includes line segments, rays, or a line. So a perpendicular bisector could be a perpendicular line. And that's confusing, but it is what it is. So in the diagram to the right, LM is the perpendicular bisector to what's the other line? PQ, good. Got that? Let's do example 3 together, then I'll have you guys try example 4. Oh, your lines are all squiggly. Oh, I see what happened. Now I see what you're talking about. Yikes. Those of you
Where do you
working,
get this off?
those of you working from home, your lines aren't squiggly.
Their lines don't look like that at the crib?
So where do you get this off of?
The printer ate my paper, so that's why your lines are squiggly. It like was it folded it up when it got to that point, so that's what happened. My bad.
John looked like a 2-year-old.
Okay, write another, we can figure it out. Write another name for angle CBF. What else could we name that?
You said CBF.
So CBF,
You could call it FBC.
FBC, good. A little way to help you with that, if you look here and they want another name for it, just write it backwards. Name the sides of EBD. So we have E to B to D. So what are the two sides of it? So we'll have two answers here.
EB.
EB and BD. So I'm gonna flip your first one. I'm gonna go BE, then BD, because they're rays, so they stop at the point. So we're gonna work inside out.
Oh, so you said
BE
DB
and BD, because they start,
at the inside.
yeah, they start at B and go out. Okay, classify A, B, C,
Straight.
straight. Good, because it's straight up and down. Okay, so I know your lines are squiggly, but what would be an example of an obtuse angle?
ABEF. No, that's a little too far.
ABF would be obtuse. Yep,
EBD.
good. So he said A, B, F. And E, B, D. Good.
Do we have to put both of those or just one?
Just one. Either one would be correct. Okay, the next thing, name two congruent angles, and this might be hard for you guys to see because your line's screwed up. But, do you see how this has this right here,
Mm-hmm.
and this has this?
Mm-hmm.
If your lines weren't squiggly, they would be the same. So anytime you see a line like this, it means your angles are congruent. So how do we name those two angles?
Which ones? Which one example?
Here and here.
EBA.
EVA,
CBF.
good. Very good. Okay. F, your last question, what would be a perpendicular bisector? So what you're gonna look for now is that straight line
AB and
with something coming off of it.
BD.
So first thing, where's your right triangle at? Here, right? Okay, what line makes that a right angle? So we don't want the line, we want the bisector, so what cuts into it? It would be what?
Wait, what? I'm so confused.
Okay, starting over. So, we found our right angle, right? It's right here, okay? You have this line that makes it, ABC, right? And then you have this line that cuts into it. We want the bisector, so which one cuts into it? BD. With me? Okay. Yeah. So to find the bisector, find the right triangle, and then find the line that cuts into the long one. Okay? Try example 4 by yourself. Those of you that are online, you can turn that in with example 2 from the front side for this assignment.